from Discord. New to Discord, by the way, so welcome to Jolting Z or Zed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Discord, by the way, free to join. Free invite in the show notes. We have 200-ish
Yeah,
folks in
just
there.
under
So
200. We're climbing every day, and we've had a lot of new people join who have been quite active, which is awesome. Love to see it. So again,
totally.
welcome to everyone who's new to Discord.
So Jolting says, I may be alone in this assessment, but regardless of the fit of Brandon Nimmo, I'm staying away from that contract. He reminds me so much of Jacoby Ellsbury. Look how that panned out for the Yankees. Three guys that I want most. Number one, Carlos Rodon. So we can go right-handed pitcher Manoah, left-handed pitcher Rodon, right-handed pitcher Gossman in a postseason run. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, Cody Bellinger. Reason is financial flexibility. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And acquire another outfield via trade. And then number three, Dansby Swanson, which would slide Bichette to second base. Espinal would then be freed up to be traded for more pitching depth. Will all three happen? Extremely unlikely, but we shall see what happens. So, what are your thoughts on this, Scott?
It's an interesting roadmap to how the Blue Jays could go about this off season, and that's what's really fun about this off season is that
Mm-hmm.
truly this front office has so many different forks in the road that they could do. See, in this scenario for jolting, what was it? Jolting L,
Jolting Zed.
jolting Z. Wrong letter, Scott. Go to the end of the alphabet. Jolting Z. In this scenario, he's opting out of a high end contract with Nimmo. Now, I get the Jacoby Ellsbury comparison. I don't think it's fair. I think Brandon Nimmo, however you want to say it, is truly the best option for center field currently with the Toronto Blue Jays. However, he is going to cost an arm and a leg. He really is. I think the market for Nimmo is hot. Once Judge signs, it's really going to kind of solidify itself as he's going to be the top outfielder available in free agency. And I think a lot of the talk is he could get more than a Springer contract. And if it's more than a Springer contract, maybe the way to maximize what you're getting in return is to take the money you would be spending on that and do just like he said, go out and get a Rodon, spend it on pitching, bolster the outfield with a cheap option and maybe through trade, and then go out and move a guy like Espinal for depth pitching. It's an interesting plot twist, if you will. It's something that could work.
Look, it's an interesting point, too, that you just made about the market being hot for Brandon Nimmo because I mean, there's three obvious top teams that are in on Aaron Judge, right? We got the Yankees, we got the Dodgers, we got the San Francisco Giants. You're not in on Aaron Judge unless you need an outfielder. So what happens if you don't get Aaron Judge? You still need an outfielder.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least two big market teams who need an outfielder, plus the Mets, who
Mm-hmm.
I think are still in on Aaron Judge, even though publicly they've said we're not going to outbid the Yankees for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy it. I think if it comes down to it and they have the money to spend, they would on Aaron Judge. That being said, there's three big teams who are going to need an outfielder still. And
Like
Brandon
this is
Nemo's the guy,
he
right?
really is. He really is. And this is where you're just going to need to evaluate how much as a front office, irrelevant of the team, how much you're prepared to spend on a guy like Nimmo. Because the truth is, I love Brandon Nimmo in a Blue Jays uniform, 5 years, 125 million. Not a big fan, 8 years, 170, right? Like if they need to go that high, I think the proposition Jolting Zed set up here is more of a direction I'd be interested in taking, where you're using those funds to go out and get a high-end pitcher and then maybe take a step back on your outfield. I know that Craig Ballard just yesterday mentioned that lots of World Series winning teams have been able to hide a extremely valuable defensive player, but an offensive black hole in that number 9 spot. We watched the Astros do it with their catcher, with Maldonado. We've seen it before, and this is an option the Blue Jays could go, especially if you're going to have a Carlos Rodon in that rotation. And now you're rolling out Manoah, Gosman, Rodon. When Jose Barrios is your number 4, that's pretty deadly.
And it is just funny how the free agency market plays out. And I do think that Brandon Nimmo, like you said, the best fit for the Jays. But also, I don't think he's going to be worth the money that he's going to get. I do think that because of the way the stars are aligning, and this is where free agency is a fickle
Such a
mistress,
crapshoot. Yeah.
right? Is that it is like the stars align for a weird guy where he happens to be a free agent at the right perfect year. Like would Brandon Nemo have gotten the same number last year versus next year versus this year? I was watching Jean Boy Media and they were talking about the Cody Bellinger getting DFA'd, but then they brought up, and this was where I'm getting to, the Luke Voigt.
Mm-hmm.
If he had have become a free agent in 2020, he'd have been 29 years old. This was, the shortened COVID season, so he only
Yeah.
hit 22 home runs, but he led all of MLB in home runs in 2020. He
On
wasn't a
pace
free
for over
agent this
50.
year, right?
On
But
pace for over 50. Yeah.
but like that is a really appealing guy who could have gotten, 6 years, 150 million for Luke Voigt.
Hey, man, it's a great example. Even if you look at injury, if you look at injuries, Brandon Nimmo only played 91 games in 2021 and didn't have near the season. So if that's his free agent year, all of a sudden he's probably needing to take a show me deal, a short-term deal where he can go out and prove himself. But now he played 151.
Yep.
It's
Good
a
timing.
shallow outfield in free agency, and he's the top guy.
And who are we to kid? If Aaron Judge didn't just hit 62 home runs, we wouldn't be talking about a $300 million contract coming his way,
Very true.
right? Like if he hit 31 home runs this year, which is still a
Yeah.
big number, it shaves quite a few dollars off that contract. So very well timed free
Mhm.
agent entering year season. I can't talk right now. You know what I'm getting at.
No, but I
Walk
do. And
year, his walk year, he really stepped up. And
I do think even though Brandon Nimmo is going to get overpaid, it doesn't mean that it takes his value away. He still has a lot of value and he still will be a very good player. There's lots of good players that are overpaid. It's just, and there's lots of scenarios where you actually want to go out and overpay for a guy. You look at your current roster, look at the guys who are under control, who aren't ARB eligible. This is why it's so important to have a farm system that's constantly turning out new major league talent so that you have that controllable and affordable bottom rung of your team, right? Like even you look at Vlad and Bo Bichette, that's kind of the case for the Blue Jays. Maybe not as much now that they're making more money in arbitration. However, those are the type of guys where you can afford to go out and spend big on a George Springer. So Brandon Nimmo is going to make a pile of money, but it might be money well spent for the right team, depending on the system that they're turning out players in.
there you go.
We really appreciate all of you within the walk-off community. This thing continues to grow and become an animal of its own. It's a little bit overwhelming, but honestly, we love talking Blue Jays baseball and all the interaction that you folks are involved with us. Thank you so much. Discord, feel free to join it. That is always free. The show, or the link is in the show notes. You can follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube currently and you're not subscribed, we'd really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. All the best, everybody. Cheers.